What's up, everyone? Welcome to the breakdown. Here we are joined with Casey Knowles and Nick Carpenter, partners in an amazing challenge that you guys are going to know all about. But before we tell you guys about the challenge, the breakdown, everything that happened in between, I think it would be really, really valuable for the audience to know a little bit more about who these main characters are in this challenge. We have Casey Knowles and Nick Carpenter. Do you guys want to share a little bit to the audience about who you are, some of the things that you've been doing, and why they should listen to you on this breakdown?
Thanks, Rob. My name is Casey Knowles. I've been lending for approximately 20 years. I guess about me that relates to this show. When I first got started, I was able to work with a guy who I sat down with and I told him how much production I wanted to do. And he just very simply on a piece of paper told me what I had to do. And back then it was, how many phone calls you could make and how many of those calls was kind of reverse engineering. And so in my first 12 months, I was able to earn about $230,000 at that time, about 20 years ago. It was a pretty solid start. Since then, sometimes fortunately, sometimes unfortunately, I've had to restart and kind of go from zero, either due to moving or the market crashing in 2008. And each time I've restarted, for example, in 2004, in my first 3 months, I was able to do about $75,000 in income in my third month. That was as a wholesale rep, but it was very much the same in getting clients. I had to restart again in 2009 when the mortgage industry changed. Within my first 3 months, I had the highest producing units in the entire company in the history, which was pretty cool. And then in 2020, I moved to Colorado and had to restart again. At that point, I was doing really poorly, and then I enlisted the help of Nick. And in my first year, I was able to do about a little over $50 million, which was obviously it was a pretty good restart.
Obviously,
and then since then, again, we wanted to do that. And document it. And so with Nick's help, we went ahead and shot the RELO show, which was me starting over again. So that's kind of my history of trying to go from zero to something and doing that over and over again and kind of getting to a point where I feel like I could do it in any city. And I think I can help anybody do it in any city at any given time. So.
Thank you, Casey. That's awesome. Thank you. Nick.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, I'm Nick Carpenter. I grew up as a Navy brat all over military bases. I watched my dad have this amazing camaraderie with buddies. And probably that's why I decided to join the Air Force. I actually went in the Air Force because my dad suggested it. He said they take better care of their people and had better food. And he was definitely right. And so, again, feeling the camaraderie in the Air Force, I decided to get out in 2005 and went into the real estate industry. And really in real estate and mortgage, I just never felt like there was a place that had that amazing camaraderie. And I was always searching for that. Eventually I decided to build the Legion of Loan Officers. I opened that in 2017. And today the Legion is doing about $1 billion in production a month between our members. And it's just, it's an awesome place where we support each other, learn, bring different ideas out to the market. It's how I met Casey Knowles. And so that's, sort of how we ended up here today.
So now that the audience knows more about you, why they should listen, your expertise and your accomplishments, let's talk about this challenge, because the RELO LO show was all about a challenge, specifically a 90-day challenge. Let's talk about that. What made you want to do that?
Whenever I moved to Colorado and I had to restart, I had to start from zero again. There have been many times in my past that I really wanted to do something and I want to hit some high numbers. And I had the willpower myself to do it. And throughout the years, over and over and over again, I've purchased products. I've, gone down different roads, trying to chase or trying to find a path that actually worked. I always wanted somebody to say, like when I first started in mortgage, whenever I first started in mortgage, I had a guy actually hand me a piece of paper and he said, if you do these things, it'll work. And between then and between when I moved to Colorado, there were a lot of times that I had the willpower to do it, but I just didn't necessarily have the path. And so whenever I met Nick Carpenter, he handed me a plan and said, hey, if you follow this, it'll work. I believed him. I followed it. And in that next year, I was like number 4 in the state of Colorado for mortgage brokers. And I did it just by doing exactly what he said. Obviously, I put some effort into the things I had to do, but I just followed his plan. And that, to me, that was a huge gift. it was a huge gift to have somebody say, look, this is what you do. If you do your part, it'll work, period, and nothing else. And so after doing that and starting to build a mortgage company, I wanted to be able to show other people, hey, look, if you have the drive and you have the willpower, I have the plan. And I didn't expect anybody to believe me because I said it. And so Nick and I got together. We talked about the idea. He was game, and our biggest intention was, hey, look, we're going to show you it works, and then once you see it, hopefully you'll believe it. And then if you want some help getting there, obviously we're building a mortgage company, and so our end game obviously is we want to work with some great people, but we wanted to prove to whoever watched that it's a fact. It wasn't a fluke when I did it the first time. It was just some tactics and some willpower behind it. And so, with that came the idea of let's go document it and put it on a camera and have a little fun with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. What's your take on that, Nick? Why did you join Casey on this 90-day challenge?
For me, watching the show Undercover Billionaire, I just thought it was amazing what they were able to do in 90 days. The first season with Glenn Stearns was awesome. Particularly the second season, I loved the Grant Cardone segment where what he did in Pueblo, building this marketing company. I mean, as a marketer, it was super impressive what they were able to do in 90 days. And when Casey brought the idea to me, I was like, oh, to me, it was like, heck yeah, because it'd be so cool to actually see what we could do in that, in that same kind of time period. We didn't have to have an appraiser or anybody come in and tell us the value of our business because we already know the value, based on, that's the great thing about the mortgage business. You can just look at production. Casey's a doer. Oftentimes I'm a doer on some level. Sometimes I'm more of a thinker and ideas, but Casey's a workhorse. I mean, definitely a cheetahist. The whole reason we came up with the whole thing of cheetah juice and that whole thing. And, I couldn't partner with somebody that would outwork him. He's going to outwork whoever is his competition. So I knew that, he already proved it once. If he just has a plan and, a structure to his day and to how we're going to go grow this thing, he's going to definitely do the work. That's never going to be a question. And so that's why I was like, to me, it was a no-brainer when he got the idea to me.
Okay. So you guys decided to do this challenge. Obviously, people will see what the result is, and we're going to break it down here. But the challenge was to go to a new city, and you all chose Colorado Springs. Why did you decide to go through Colorado Springs?
For me, it was pretty much just location. I am from a very small town when I grew up. The town I'm from is called Cowboy Capital of the World. So you can imagine there's not a lot of people there. And so for me to go a certain direction, I live in northern Colorado now. Denver's very close, but it's only about an hour away. So although that would have been a great spot to do it, just because there's a lot of people, I decided to go a little bit further to make it an actual move. I didn't want it to make it easy for me just to come home and to skip actually being there alone. So Colorado Springs was the next best spot. It was, depending on traffic, anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 hours away. And it also had a lot of people in it. So I knew that in order to have a chance at hitting a number, I didn't want to move to a town that had 10,000 people. I needed to make sure that there's enough loans there, at least, that the tactics that we had, I could measure whether or not they worked. And it wasn't limited by just, that there's 10 transactions a month in an entire area. We wanted an area that, that had the volume that could support a test. And so it was a perfect distance that I could actually live there, but not so far away that if my kids had a volleyball game at night, I could take 6 hours and sprint home and check it out. So it was definitely family driven, and also trying to meet the metrics of I actually moved and I just didn't drive, 45 minutes to Denver, for example. So that was the big focus for me.
What do you have to say with that, Nick?
No, everything. I just would echo what Casey said. Basically, far enough that it felt real. It also, where it wasn't just a little bit away, it was actually a few hours away. So it seemed like more legit. It also, it's not a gigantic city, like Denver. Some might say, oh, well, of course, Denver's got, 5 million people or whatever. But Colorado Springs only has, I think, 400,000 or something like that. So it's a reasonably sized city to kind of go and prove the concept. So yeah, I thought it was a perfect spot to do it. And it just happened to be, the hotter cities during that time, so in some cases we were able to leverage some pieces of that, but it's Yeah, so it was I think it was just that. It was a place where it was far enough away that this was a legit test. We didn't have anybody there, no real network or referral partners or anything there in that city. And it wasn't a giant city, so it felt, again, it was more realistic in terms of city size and the available opportunity there.
Yeah. To add to that, I didn't know anybody in that town or in the city. I had driven through there to go to Pueblo one time. And just prior to the show, I was looking for a place to live. And I did drive to an RV park to see if the RV park would work for a place for me to stay. Wait, I actually did have a trailer on order that couldn't come in time. It was a friend of mine's business. He was going to sell me a trailer like it cost so I could have a place to stay. But the due to COVID, I guess the trailer couldn't be here on time. So we had to switch gears. But anyway, long story short, I'd never been there. I didn't know anybody there. And it met that metric really well. So it's far enough away that my circle, like on Facebook and stuff, didn't really envelop that area.
Yeah, it was totally legit. It was totally legit. Okay, so you guys went to a new city. You had this challenge. You had this plan. What was the original goal for the first 90 days or for the only 90 days that you have?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because in the very beginning, I had gone to Nick and said, hey, most loan officers, I don't know what the actual average is. I'm guessing it's maybe 700,000 a month or something like that. And so I went to Nick, and to do 2 million a month is a solid number. If you're a loan officer doing 24 million a year, that's great income. And so I'd gone to Nick and I said, hey, let's shoot for a number. Like, can we get to a really good number in a really short amount of time? And so the original number was 2 million. And, Nick's on Facebook quite a bit. And I think he had a little too much cheetah juice one day because I ended up catching a post and he said, hey, watch Casey go to, go to Colorado Springs and I forget what the number was. It was like 2.5 million but he bumped the number up. And Nick hasn't actually originated loans and closed loans so much. His business has been driving the business and the marketing and attraction marketing and doing a lot of things he's really good at. But I don't know that he understood the difference between getting 2 million and 3 million. It's not just something you can just throw it out there and it happens. It's actually quite difficult. So it was 2 million was the original number. And then there were some things said on Facebook that may not match up to that, but 2 million was our goal.
Exactly.
And Nick, with that 2 million goal, what did you did you forget, or were you just feeling good? The cheetah juice was tingling. What was it that that made you bump the number up? Was it inflation?
Yeah, exactly. I think I actually just misremembered the number, but sometimes because I don't originate, I think it can be easy for me to not differentiate between the idea of a $2 million a month producer and a $3 million a month producer necessarily. Sometimes I might not recognize all the work that has to go into to that increase, to add another 2 or 3 loans, 4 loans a month, whatever that number needs to be in order to add another million. Sometimes I probably can downplay the effort or work that actually has to go into that because I haven't been on the production side. Like Casey said, I'm mostly on, creating opportunities, opening doors, that kind of stuff. Not necessarily on how do we actually get that loan, from that realtor, sometimes on that specific. So yeah, I probably just misspoke there a couple of times on Facebook, but he's right though. Originally we were going for $2 million.
And for those who don't do loans, just to give you an idea, 2 million a month for an app, you can get paid different amounts depending if you work for a bank or a broker. It can go anywhere from 0.33% to 2.5%. So there's a big variable, but on average, most loan officers that originate their own business get paid about 1.5%. And so at 2 million a month, that is pacing at $360,000 a year. So we thought that was a pretty substantial stretch. Can somebody make $350,000 or more, 360,000 on pace for that in the third month? And that's why that number is not an average in the industry. Obviously, people don't make that kind of money. So at least not on average. They're, closer to probably, $80,000 to $140,000, something like that. But anyway, that was our number, to be pacing for 360,000 a year.
Okay, so that was the goal for the 90 days, right? Maybe there's a little discrepancy, but at the end, you guys were all still at the same page about what that goal was. So, of course, I have my own perspective. My team and I, we were there in a behind the scenes thing. But for the first 30 days, after the first 30 days, a third of the way there, how are you feeling about it?
The obvious thing once you watch the show is we only had 3 people show up to the first class, and that was, starting from zero. As you'll see in the show, we talked about a hockey stick effect quite a bit, and so I didn't anticipate making any progress the first couple of weeks. I didn't expect anything to happen. I wasn't looking for any wins early. I knew that the first month was going to be rough. I knew it'd be different than what I expected. Like, I knew there'd be obstacles. I just didn't really know what they would be. But in looking back, I think the first month was probably the first thing I would say. It was a big adjustment not being around my family. I'm not a guy that does card night. I don't go to the bars by myself. I'm home, in bed early. Kids are in the house, and my life is very much the same every day. And so it always has been. And so for me to go somewhere, the first month I noticed, emotionally, it was very difficult to have, I had this extra pressure. And then also I didn't have my normal downtime with my kids and the kids' noises and running around and just the things that you get accustomed to, that all of a sudden it's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the house was not quite as comfortable as my house. I was doing my own cooking and cleaning and washing clothes and all those things, which I'm pretty spoiled right now. So I think for the most part, it was more of a living adjustment, more so than work. I didn't anticipate too many wins. And so in reality, whenever only 3 people came to the class, I wasn't so much worried about that day. But what it did do was open up a concern that, hey, what if I can't fix this? And like that day we got over. Both Nick and I we're winning type of people. We're like, hey, show's going to go on. Let's make the best of it. And we were able to get over that in 15 seconds. But I also knew that it was my problem and my responsibility to get more people there the next time. And I didn't necessarily know how I was going to do that because I did the best I could the first time. It wasn't like, hey, I didn't try. Next time I'll try. I actually did do the best I could. And looking back, I can fix that actually. But at the time, I didn't know how to fix it. And so that's the first month was more of a question like, hey, am I going to be able to pull this thing off? Because I got zero traction.
Yeah, I think the first month, definitely having only 3 people show up in a room that we had set for like 20 or 30 people was, kind of like kicking the nuts. But we made the best of it. And it turned out, we made connections that day. And that was, I think maybe in some instances, those connections and the deep connections we were able to build with those people wouldn't have occurred if we were speaking from stage and there was 20 people in the room, because then they would have just been another one of 20 sitting down, anyways, the way that we kind of like just overcame the best as we could, I think it worked out almost better looking back on it now. I think it was like the best thing for us to only have those 3 people show up, but it was definitely kind of scary. I remember thinking there's more people here with the video crew than there are, there's more people filming than there are being filmed. And that was kind of interesting. Also, even with the social, even the social was, it was a little light, right? It was only around 14 people, I think, something like that showed up for the first social. And same thing. It was great for the pocketbook, Casey will get into numbers later, in terms of what things cost, but, so in that instance, it was good. But, you just expect sometimes that when you throw these offers out there, that more people are going to be interested, but they had no idea who we were. And I think in some cases, the first month was about Casey establishing, hey, here's who I am. I'm here. I'm going to be providing value. I'm not going away, because sometimes realtors are hit with so many offers. They have to either hear it from a third party or get some proof that, what you've got going on is valuable. And so they can, to share their time with you. And I think a lot of times the first month, I would have hoped that we had bigger numbers in both instances of the class and the social, but it ended up working out really well because it just created it just established that we were here. Here's what we're doing. Our stuff is valuable. It's fun. And then you can see with the hockey stick kind of numbers, it just kind of sprung from there.
Wow, what a breakdown for the first 30 days. I honestly can't imagine how I would feel 30 days in, a third of the way there, and just having to, be okay with those kind of results and just keep the momentum going to actually make it a better second month and an even better third month. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go into the second month. So the first month, you've seen those results. What about the second month? Do you have now something that you want to compare it to, something else that you want to aim for? How did that second month go 2/3 of the way in?
I think something that's interesting is whenever we're filming the show, Rob, you were like, hey, to make this show good, like we need to bring the tempo up. We need to bring the tempo down. Like most shows, there has to be like this roller coaster thing. And I was sometimes I would think about like, how do we fabricate that? How do we make that happen?
Yeah.
But what's funny was I went in the second month, and I started doing some more work on getting people to class and doing those things. And what was interesting was by the end of the second month, like I had so much traction. I got a deal in contract, and Travis, the guy we met at the first social, he sent me a deal. I got that one pre-approved. And so all of a sudden I'm at the end of the second month, and I forget what I had. We had maybe 800,000 or $1 million. We pretty much had like half of what I needed. And I had a bunch of other things that were promising things, which normally a percentage of those comes through. So we like almost started to hyper celebrate. So we got on the phone and we got on the Legion of Loan Officers on a call, and we're like, oh man, Casey's just like, we're in the second month and we almost have our number for the third month. And I'm thinking, man, I wonder if I can just go home. But was funny, towards the end of the second month, it was like this huge celebration. And then as I rolled into the third month, like I lost all that. My pre-approved buyer ended up going away. He went on vacation, and then a deal that I had, I forget, but everything I had and all the hopes that I had kind of drifted away. I think I ended up having one deal that was a purchase that I picked up at a Keller Williams, like a call night type thing. It's called Bold 100. So I was there and I picked up a for sale by owner deal. And so I had a little bit of business, but all the stuff that I thought I had went away. And so it definitely was like the celebration, and then backpedaling, because I just got on a phone call with Legion Loan Officers, like talking about what a badass I was and how we were killing it. But that's the business. Like these are 30-day long deals, and in the 30 days, anything can happen. It was also the beginning of a interest rates are starting to rise as well. And so some of the refinances I thought I could pick up, I couldn't. And each day I try to sell a deal, and the rates would be different the next day. And so month two was difficult as well. And I was, again, I was telling Nick, man, I wonder if this hockey stick curve thing is going to kick in time, because I know I'm doing the work, but I don't really have anything to show for it. And so I'd like to say there were some really great highs in there, and every day I'd celebrate something, but it wasn't necessarily celebrating that I was on track to smash this thing. Yeah.
The good news about month two is that we're improving, right? In terms of when you look at the class attendance, significant increase. When you look at the social, significant increase. Even I'm pretty sure that was when we didn't even have to fabricate drama. The dude just showed up, so it was exciting. But the great thing about month two was that you could see effort starting to produce, right? That people were knowing who he was. Realtors were talking about us, especially he really got to become friends and know some decent realtors in the area that have a lot of respect. And so if you can use realtors to talk about you, it's going to obviously always come back positively. And so we had, when you look at the class was awesome in month two. We had just, a really good turnout. And then same thing on the social, the social at least doubled, and, in people that were at the social, and the class, I think tripled, maybe quadrupled, something like that, and so it was, you could see, that you could start to see the effort paying off. And obviously even on, like Casey said, he was starting to get some deals. And, oftentimes that very first deal, that's the hardest to get, it's that, man, now they're putting their trust in you. They're they're putting, their reputation on the line by recommending you. There's a lot that goes into getting their first loan from people. And often that's the hardest to get. So the fact that that was starting to occur was pretty cool.
I'd like to add, yeah, as far as the numbers go, I was being a little bit, realistic on my side, but the numbers, we were like 300% over month one at minimum, whether it was the class or the socials. And Nick is really great about this idea about a local celebrity and about authority, and to develop that as fast as we could. The local celebrity, the authority thing was really important, because even whenever I met partners that would be a great match for me, I still needed to strengthen that relation. Like, even though in the long run they will be my friends for life, I still needed to, normally you have so many points of contact before you start building trust. But with some of the things Nick had me do in the background, like getting people on the news and we're on websites and we press releases, all these things happen. So whenever I met people that were good partners, it enabled them to be a good partner with me months sooner than had I just done it organically and happened to run into them, at the grocery store and, throughout a year, for example. So one of Nick's strengths is just speeding up that authority and the local celebrity thing, which helps that people trust you whenever you talk and trust you to hand you their paycheck and say, hey, look, here's the deal. And, it needs to close and I trust you to do it. And so that's something that you won't see watching the show, because it's something that people feel whenever they're on social media and whenever they get emails and they get contacts. But it's what he does in the background that builds that trust faster. And again, it's really hard to measure, but it was one of the things that enabled me to sink my hooks in a lot quicker.
Yeah. And it was super evident, month over month, from month one to month two, and even from month 2 to month 3, it was super evident how that authority, how it was almost like, it wasn't just like multiplying, it was like squared, like that hockey stick, like you were talking about, month after month. That's awesome. So first month, second month, obviously people will see what happened at the third month. Okay. We can't like fully spoil it for them. At least not just yet, but they will see what happened in the third month. Now that the 3 months are over, now that the 90 days are over, how do you feel? What are the thoughts going through your head? Do you still sometimes do you feel like you're being filmed, Casey? Or like, you're like, oh, I got to get up, do something, camera crew's coming. Or, how do you feel now after the 90 days is over?
The final number, the final number definitely changed, how I feel internally about what can be done. I even participating in this, it changed. We all have a certain idea of what reality is, right? And we have certain things that we believe that most likely we just assume things, but we think it's a belief. And so we kind of hold on to it. After completing this 90 days and starting over again, I have another new belief that like what I did could be done even more efficiently, even faster. And had I not done the show, I certainly wouldn't, I have a little bit of an identity now with somebody that, I think I could, if somebody's got the guts, I think I could tell them how to do it. And if they did what I said, I know that they could repeat my performance at least, because I know we could do it better. Both Nick and I both know we could do it better, because we actually analyzed the show, analyzed what we did. And we're like, if we fix this up front, it would be a multiplier in the end. And I believe that like 100%. I have zero doubts that I couldn't go to another town and do it again, and actually do better, because I think I could do what I did without any refinances is what I think. So, and if by cutting out the refinances, it definitely makes it a more stable skill set. And I did rely on some refinances to hit my number, and that's something that could go away. And I recognize that. So I don't really count refinances so much. But even on the purchase business, we still did pretty well. So
yeah.
Anyway, to answer your question, now that 90 days is over, I think I'm left with more resolve. Like, these are things, it's not okay to accept that they don't work, because I know how to do it right and how to get a number. And so if somebody comes to me and says, oh, this isn't working, I did it. I can just say, well, are you doing this? No. Are you doing that? No. Okay, well, that's why it's not working. Because if you did these things, it would work.
I think that's one of the coolest parts about having this 90 days be over is that we proved it. And anybody could follow that same path. And, anybody can watch the show, be inspired by what Casey did there, and just go do it themselves. I mean, if somebody's a real doer, there's enough information in the show that they could just go, okay, I kind of see what he did here. Just go do it themselves. I mean, there's going to be some people that obviously, want a little hand holding, some help, some guidance and that sort of thing. But the path has been laid out. And I think it's cool where we didn't just think about it, or kind of, it's not a theory, but we actually proved it. And that's a big difference. And a lot of times there is theory even in marketing, right? A lot of marketing and stuff is like, oh, I think maybe let's see if this will work. Let's try this thing. But until, Casey was willing to put boots on the ground. And I think that was what was so cool about this challenge is that he was willing to, put his family life in a lot of ways on hold for 90 days and go and, and sacrifice to see if this actually works. And so the fact that we proved it is super awesome. And again, in month 3, the class was epic. I don't want to give everything away, but amazing. The way that it came out. The social couldn't have gone any better. Amazing location. I think 1350 Distilling was a super cool location to do it at. I love that they're all veterans and military-ish and stuff there. And it was so fun to have a lot of our friends even fly in to support us at that last social. And I thought that was really cool. And I remember specifically people coming up to me and saying, hey, who's Casey? Where's Casey? I want to make sure I meet him. And I was like, man, if that's not super proof that people are coming in the room and really searching him out, as the guy. And just that in such a short time, we were able to create this huge perception of the value he can bring, that he's trustworthy, that he's fun, he's cool. You want to hang out with him. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, definitely probably cost him a little extra for the third social there by being Mr. Popular, but it was awesome that it worked out in the way that it did. And it was, and if somebody just follow what Casey did in their market and they're not actually leaving after 90 days, I mean, if that stick just kept rising, you're for sure getting in Scotsman Guide, just following this same plan. I think that's so cool.
And to add to that, if I may, just from my perspective, on the day of the third social, my team and I were here filming, and people are coming to us like, hey, where's Casey? I heard Casey would be here. Like I heard, and like, they're just saying your name and they haven't even met you yet on the, in the social. I'm over pointing like, look for the tall guy. Like there's Casey over there.
Yeah. A couple of those people actually came from Pueblo, which is like 45 minutes away. And when I heard that, I'm pretty much an introvert. And so a lot of those, when that stuff was happening, I was like, I didn't know what to do. It was like, I felt like I'm like, hey, this is kind of like my 15 minutes fame. It was really cool. Like, I really felt like for once in my life, I was somewhere and it was like a surprise birthday party that I didn't hate. And it was interesting. I met people walking in the door. I heard people asking for me, and I don't even think I was friends with them on Facebook. Honestly, they may have seen some of our ads, or they saw, I don't know what they saw, but there were 2 people in particular that I wasn't friends with on Facebook because I added them afterwards. And they were the ones that came from Pueblo asking for me. And I thought that was super strange. I didn't even ask them how, why they're asking for me. I was too embarrassed. But the third social was, it was like a New Year's Eve party. It was like people just like smashed in there, and that the bar bill was pretty insane. But it was a ton of fun. And we had people fly in from New Jersey, from Florida. I met, talk about, it was like man of the hour thing. It wasn't something I deserved or anything, but it was honestly a part of the game plan. It's like, how do we build authority, and how do we build this local celebrity thing? And there wasn't any lying in it, but there was a lot of tactics there on things that we were doing and how we're helping other people get on the news and things like that, it just gives you this thing, like you're capable of doing some things, or you're willing to do some things that other people can't, and it's for the greater good. And I met 75 days or 80 days earlier, like I didn't know a single person there. And there had to be 100 people in that room smashed in there. I met, you'll see a video. There's camera like spans from one side to the other, and there's just like people just taking shots and having fun. So yeah, it was great. It was great. I was exhausted that day, but I was ready for it to be over, but it was definitely the pinnacle. You know, it was like, this was the 90 days right here, all wrapped up into one celebration. And it was a hell of a fun night.
Okay, so you guys came to Colorado Springs, you smashed the goal, you killed it. You share with us why you chose Colorado Springs. If you were to do another city, would there be anything that you would do different? One thing, two things, nothing at all? You know, what would be the approach if you did this in another city?
Over the past 20 years, I have a really good idea of the clients that I've worked with that I've always done really well with. And if you watch the show, in the beginning of the show, I think you'll hear me a few different times say, I'm just looking for my people. I'm looking for my people. Like, I'm going to throw this net out there, and I got to find my people, because I know who my people are. And once I talk to them, but I looked at it from a really tactically wrong way. I thought that these people would emerge. So what's interesting is I know who my people are. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to cast this big net. I'm going to reel a bunch of people in that. And then within that group that I find, my people are going to start to come out, and I'm going to find my people, and then I'm going to take them to the finish line, or vice versa. I'm going to help them. They're going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. At least I know my people. And that's one of the reasons why I knew I would do okay. But in looking back, since I know my people, had I come from the perspective as, instead of casting a big net and having my people sift through it, had I been intentional in going after my people, we could have done double the numbers we did, or at least done everything as purchase. Because since I know who I am, I could have very easily just marketed to my people, but I didn't have the experience. And this is one of the things I learned, that had I really taken this client that I know and I love and I work well with, and actually took a piece of paper and dialed that down into all these attributes and these thoughts and the big questions they have and what they say to themselves at night and all this stuff. If I were to have written that down and converted that into my marketing, I could have actually marketed to these people that instead of 3 showing up to a class, maybe I would have gotten 6, but that could have potentially doubled my production. And then we could have done that at each class and weeded out some of the, 20, 30 people that I don't want to work with, or the 4 or 5 people that give me the biggest headache or assholes, right? Like I didn't need to reel those people in and go through the pains of seeing if they sift through my net. And so had I been intentional day one, that is one of the things that I would have changed. And I could have worked the same hours and probably doubled my production is my guess. And done so with less headache from pressures of working with people that aren't my people. So that would be the one major thing that I would bring up.
If there was a second thing that we were going to do differently in the next city we go to, or if we were going to do this process again, I would say is find more opportunities on how to leverage a virtual assistant. We found some really cool things to do with a VA in the Philippines that can, help you with some background tasks, different messaging, different things on social media, stuff like that. And really, there's probably even more stuff that she could have been doing. She was helping Casey around an hour a day, something like that. And what I'm certain that if we really thought hard about it, we could come up with more tasks and more ways to leverage her time and make Casey even have more visibility, or maybe have her doing some stuff for realtors. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that would have been the only other thing I would do differently, is like, what are some other ways that we can leverage the system? Because having that, those extra hours, it was super beneficial.
Something that we haven't spoken about, Nick, that's really interesting about that. I was thinking about it, but some of the people ended up knowing that I was using a virtual assistant for some of the tasks that probably could have come from me. And where I thought that might have been a negative, actually, I think I ended up getting some authority out of it, because they're like, oh, this dude's using a virtual assistant. And so in the beginning, I'm like, there'll be 20% of the people are going to catch on and go, he probably should have sent that message to me first. Like, hey, thanks for being friends on Facebook. But ultimately what I got was either some questions or, hey, that's cool that, it was like they were acknowledging that, that I was somebody that that was efficient with my time and or using some tools that they wish they could have used. And so that had a different impact than what I expected. That was a positive one.
Wow, thank you guys for sharing that. Those two things, going all in on the avatar and going all in on leveraging not just your time, other people's time, and what that does to your authority. I can only imagine what that would do to your results next time, or if you were to help somebody else out with that same process. But with that being said, with the process, the 90 days, the challenge, everything, I'm sure there's a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts that came with it, but what surprised you the most when it came to the whole process of the 90 days?
This is super obvious for me. I had told Nick, hey, look, even driving up there, I'm like, man, I'm going to smash this thing because I don't have my kids and wife and I don't have my home to watch after. So I will be able to work like 100 hours a day. And I was relying on the fact that I could work my way through this and do well. And what I noticed was probably halfway through or even 2/3 through it, I wasn't working full days. So whenever I would go home, I would want to beat traffic. And so, and traffic around Denver is horrible. It would add an hour and a half to my time. So I was leaving, sometimes I wouldn't have a meeting with somebody until noon on Monday. And so there were times when I left home either Thursday night and didn't really work Friday so much. Like maybe I would go to the office and do some things. This was not the last month. The last month I was on the phone. I was trying to get deals because it was the month that I needed to, originate loans. But my biggest surprise was I didn't even work 40-hour weeks. I really didn't. And, I was managing other loan officers. I have a mortgage company. I also had loans out of the area I was doing. I had people I was helping in California and different states. The managing that I was doing included doing reports and payroll and quite a few different things. So it wasn't that I wasn't working full days. I was working my 10 hours a day, but I would say most of the days I worked like, maybe 6-7 hours a day. And then and then on Fridays, I was working like 3. And that is something that I didn't expect. I figured I'd work, 60 hours a week on this thing to make sure I was winning. But at the end of the day, I didn't even work a full week, not 1 week during the the last month, I'm sure I did. But the first 2 months, they were like half-ass days, honestly. So that's probably the biggest surprise I had.
Yeah. I assumed that we were going to need a ton of referral partners to start sending us deals, that we were going to go into this place. We were going to need to go get 10, 15 realtors, send us a deal a piece, this kind of thing in order to hit the numbers that we wanted to hit. And to me, the biggest surprise was that if once you kind of dialed down that avatar, or especially if you just look at where the deals came from, that was a surprise to me, that really, if you just go all in on the people that like Casey says, oh, he's looking for his people. Mm-hmm. Once he found those and he was able to go all in with them, they know other people like them, right? I mean, usually like hangs out with like, in most cases. And so they were able to start referring their realtor friends and other people like that. And so when you look at this kind of pyramid of where this business came from, it really only all originated at the top from a couple of people. Mm-hmm. And, there's some side deals on people that maybe sort of match the avatar, not fully match the avatar. But if you just look at, people that, if Casey, outlined his exact avatar, who he works with the best, and then look at where did the deals come from, the bulk of the deals came from people that match his avatar. Mm-hmm. and referring other people that match the avatar. And so I thought that was interesting, that really it was proof of how much impact just having a couple of amazing referral partners could have on your business. In this case, it would put us on track, for a Scotsman Guide's quality of business, top 1% level business. And it really all originated just from a few people that, liked him, started sending him to other people, and, kind of this sort of pyramid thing that built out. But it didn't start with 10 or 15 people like we thought we would have to go find.
All right. So you guys definitely gave the audience a ton of insight about what your learning experiences were, what some of the challenges, and I'm sure as they watch the show, they will get even more of what your day-to-day experience was like. But I think what everyone is super, super curious on and super just wanting to listen and ready to learn is the numbers. So how do you feel about the final numbers? Let's share the numbers, how it all went through. How do you feel about it at the end of the day?
I feel good about it. Like in looking, I'm used to expecting good numbers. And so I wasn't shocked at what we got, and I wasn't super impressed by the number. For example, I just didn't know if we would get it within the 90 days. There was a chance that it could have potentially taken another couple of weeks or 3 weeks for me to hit that same number because, things happen. And looking back, I meant it. First of all, 3.3 million is hitting the Scotsman's Guide, 40 million a year. So that was like our stretch goal, and that was something that would have, I thought, quote unquote, make me proud or whatever. Like, hey, we could make the Scotsman's Guide 90 days, or at least be on pace for it. And so I don't think anybody would not say that that's a great number within 90 days. The part that I don't know about is, like, in looking back, I think I could do a bigger number, but I don't know if I could do it faster. And that's probably the part that I haven't necessarily figured out a trick like, hey, I could get that done in 60 days, because there has to be enough relationship equity built up that somebody actually trusts me and wants to give me a shot with their loan. And that goes back to human nature. So, could I have developed a relationship faster and gotten a loan, faster? Well, we did get one loan in the second month, but to get it at scale, I think maybe we could do it faster, because again, I kind of figured out some ways to improve it. But anyway, I don't know how much faster, but as far as the number goes, I meant $3.5 million was like 3.468, something like that. It's like on pace for over 600,000 a year, in general for a loan officer. And in the third month, without knowing anybody, my gosh, come on, that's pretty crazy, I think. So
yeah, it was impressive. And what was interesting to me is how it basically all came in the third month. I know Casey expected nothing really to happen in the first month, but I was like, oh, hopefully we can at least get some deals, some stuff starts rolling in. But that was one of the definitely things for me learning was you do have to build some equity up in the market. People have to know who you are. That's the great thing about if somebody's taking the ideas here and doing it themselves. Maybe they don't need to take 30 or 60 days to build relationship equity or have some people know who they are, because maybe they already have some of that. So for, in some cases, if you're not going to a brand new market, you might be able to go way faster than what we did. But I think like Casey said, to do almost $3.5 in the first 90 days, I think is amazing. It's definitely on pace for a business that any loan officer, the majority of loan officers can be proud of and would want to have, and they would have a lifestyle equal to or better than any whatever they're doing today. I think it's and the fact that it would put you on pace to be in the top 1%, that's pretty impressive. I thought it was amazing what he was able to pull off, and that that really proved itself, because it was like 45 or 60 days almost of kind of not really having loans necessarily, doing a lot of work. It was like he was planting seeds and all this stuff, and then it really all started the third month, which was great.
Okay, so the result was there. We went into month one, month two. We knew that the hockey stick was hitting, and all the results, at least most of the results, were going to come in month three. What was your strategy for month three, Casey?
Well, I'm not the youngest guy on the planet, so somebody of my age, I went to the store and I got some Post-it notes. I stuck them up on the wall, and on the Post-it notes, I started putting names of every single person that I had met on there, and it was going to be my database. Essentially, I wanted them on the wall in front of me, so I didn't miss anybody, and I also didn't shy away from, it was right there in my face every day. So I had some 50-something names up there of people that I met, all the way from people I cared about to people that were indifferent. I had a full range of people. Some I was close with, some I wasn't. But what I didn't want to do is have an opportunity there that I missed. It was really important. So I started off with putting them on the wall and just using it to like dial for dollars kind of thing. Ultimately, what I found out was, I really didn't have a reason to call a lot of those people. It was, as I looked at the list, I felt like, I think a lot of loan officers do, that were supposed to make these calls, but I wasn't really calling of, I was just trying to get a loan. It's like a typical stereotypical loan officer with their hand out. And so still what I ended up doing was kind of dialing in on my people. And so out of that big board, at the end of the show, which was really interesting, once I did dial in on my people, I ultimately took that list and I just transferred the people that I ended up getting loans from onto another piece of paper and trying to find like the origin of where I got loans. I kind of reverse engineered it a little bit. And 10 of the 12 loans, if you look at my second post-it notes, 10 of the 12 loans actually came from two people. So two people, the relationships of two people generated on average 5 loans apiece, or 5 transactions. Wow. And one of those people, one person, isn't even yet what you'd consider a high producer. And I think that probably nobody on the planet would believe me if I said, hey, you could go to a non-producer and get 5 transactions out of that person or whatever on average. And that's the power of dialing in your client, because you're not just getting the client. What you have is the trust of that client, and that trust pours over to their entire circle. So if somebody vouches for you, somebody says, hey, you got to call Casey, even if that person is not the one giving you the business, they're the one edifying you. And when I moved it over there and I saw, like, look, this is what actually happened, it really made me realize I could have targeted my people as opposed to trying to sift them through this first post-it note of 50 people. What a waste of time to do that. So that was the big improvement, and writing it on the wall is something that helped really visually bring that out and help me take notice.
Yeah, Casey mentioned that he was going to create this giant whiteboard with names and everybody that he had met and all the relationships. So that way, whenever he woke up, and he could always just look at the board and he could look for the opportunity that was there right in his face. It wasn't his CRM or some sort of, digital thing that he has to go into. It's just right there in the living room. And I guess that was one of the, benefits of being in the house by himself. He didn't, he could just decorate it in however he wanted to do it. It was cool that, even from that, starting from that big list, that he was still able to work down and really figure out, who are his people, and, who can give the most value to, who finds him the most valuable, who share that with other people that could also find him valuable. And so, yeah, seeing that the business really all trickled down from 2 ladies that came to the very first class that we ever did. When you look back at that first class, only 3 people showed up, but 2 of them basically met his perfect avatar of exactly who they are. And one of them is more or less is like how we figured out what that avatar looks like, or different characteristics and traits about the avatar. But the fact that 2 out of the 3 people that showed up to that first class, when the fact that they came to the class indicated a need, right? If they didn't have any needs, they would have never showed up to the class. But anyways, I think it's like a blessing in disguise that only 3 people showed up, 2 out of 3. So 66% of people that showed up to that first class met the perfect avatar, ended up doing a lot of deals, referred friends and family and other realtors and potential referral partners and things like that. So having that board up in the house, I think helped to create other kind of aha moments for us of really realizing, again, you need 50 people. The business, 90% of the business came originated from 2 people, right? So if you look, it's like, so that's like 4% of the list that he had on the wall generated 90% of our business. And it's just sometimes like that, right? If you really dial down into who you're working with well, who you connect with, who needs what you have to offer and understands your value, you can probably go, further faster by really just focusing on those people specifically.
Yeah, those 2 people did, it was over 2.7 million for the 2 people. So we did nearly 40% of our goal with 2 people. And you know, I could see somebody on the outside going, oh, since you only did it with 2 people, it's not like you can't replicate that. And I would argue with that all day long, because I've done that my entire career. When I was in California, I worked with one real estate agent, and I was still a high 6-figure earner working with one person. And that one person wasn't necessarily one of these super realtors, right? It was just an average producing person, but her entire circle was my circle. And, you know, I think saying that, you know, it's a fluke, or you know, that you couldn't repeat it, I meant it's just lazy, because I've repeated it over and over again, and we did it on camera. And you know, if it's something you can't believe, it's just because you haven't tried it yet. You haven't done it yet. I doubt that there's anybody that produces more than me that would watch this and go, oh, that's bullshit.
Wow, over 1 million for the perfect avatar. That is an amazing finding. So, you know, you guys did, you know, almost 3.5 million. I'm not sure 100% exactly what that is in commissions, but you know, you obviously had some expenses as well. Let me say, you obviously had some expenses as well. You guys, you know, ran some Facebook ads, you had some class, you had some socials. You know, I know those were all expenses. When you take everything into consideration, you know, did you spend 100 grand to make 100 grand? Like, how did those finances break down?
I feel like we did pretty good on expenses. If you look at month 1, we spent about $450. That's basically running Facebook ads for the class, buying Cheetah Juice, you know, our energy drink that we have, to give those away. The social actually cost us only $286, which I think is amazing to have. You know, I think it was around 14 people that showed up there. And even I remember some ladies, they even snuck in some dinners and said that we were agreeing to pay for their dinner. But so it was $286 social. We ran about $30 worth of ads. We bought some note cards for Casey as well. So that was about $26 on note cards. And then we bought some signage that we can have for our events. And that was $69 that we spent on the signage. So for a month, we spent about $450.
Wow.
Now that would be not including, you know, obviously Casey's rent on his house and, you know, the stuff that we, you know, bought there. But if you're obviously doing this in your own market, you don't have that. So, but what we spent in terms of like quote unquote marketing or, you know, going to grow the business was about $456 in the first month. In the second month, it was $1,634. So same thing. We spent some on Facebook ads. We spent Cheetah Juice, $26 for Cheetah Juice. The social for month 2 cost us $416 for the, you know, buying the alcohol and stuff there. We spent like $20 on Facebook ads. And then we also bought some pumpkins. Casey had bought, I think, maybe 8 or 10 pumpkins. So that was about $40 worth of pumpkins that we had available that we just were giving away to people at the end. You know, it's kind of a fun thing to take home to their kids or whatever. We bought some custom cornhole boards. And because we bought them and wanted them really fast, they were kind of expensive. They were $900. So that's where the majority of the money is going. You know, the month is really to the social and to the cornhole boards we bought. If you got them, you know, not as fast, or maybe from somebody local where they didn't charge $1 million for shipping, probably could get that cut in half. We spent $125 on G, the virtual assistant that we had doing some stuff in the background, sending out messages, inviting people to classes, inviting people to the social, saying happy birthday, that kind of stuff. And then $69 on a light kit. So for month 2, $1,634 was our marketing budget. And then in month 3, I spent about $36 on Facebook ads for promoting the class, about $20 for Cheetah Juice. And then the social was big. It was $1,900, which is why I said in the future, you know, if we did socials, I would definitely work on getting sponsors and have the bill. And then $35 in Facebook ads we used towards the social, and $125 again for G, doing stuff in the background as a virtual assistant. So the budget in month 3 was a little over $2,000. It was $2,116 was our budget. So, I mean, the expenditure over the course of the 90 days, you know, we're a little less than maybe just over $4,000 total, which I think is pretty reasonable, you know, to be at, you know, $1,200, $1,500 a month when you look at kind of out there doing some things, especially for the amount of relationships, face-to-faces, clinking glasses, teaching realtors, and that kind of stuff that we were able to do. Like a pretty good spend for a little over 4,000.
Wow. So just so under $5,000 is what it looks like. Under $5,000 for the entire challenge. to feed people, get your name out there, brand them with your cheetah juice and, the cornhole and all that awesomeness. So with that investment, right? And of course, there are some things that you learn, some things that you'll probably do next time. What can, another loan officer who follows this plan to the T, what can they expect, when they take the plunge and invest, less than $5,000 into their business in commissions? What would that look like for them?
Yeah, there's everybody has a few different things that they use as far as being successful in their work. One is their skill set, how well you sell or how well you can communicate with people. And that's something that obviously is different with everybody and develops. But the other two things, one is tactics, and the last one would be your willpower, your drive. So if somebody came to me and used our tactics and they had the same willpower I do, maybe their skill set's better or less than mine. But if you fix those two things, then at that point, you can work on your skill set to bring it up to what one man can do, another man can do. And the willpower you should be able to match because that's choice. And the tactics is something that I could show you, Nick could show you. And so if you have the drive, there's no reason in the world you couldn't match my performance because we have two of the three things that are two of those three variables are out of the way. So are you above average? Are you below average? According to normal compensation, I was pacing about 600,000 a year. So if your skill set is one half of mine, you should be able to do $300,000 without a problem. If your skill set is twice as good as mine, you could do $1.2 million. I've been doing it 20 years. I am really good with my avatar. I am not very good with the other 98% of the world. And so I focus on the two people that I can communicate well with, or the 2%. So that's part of my experience. Look, I suck with this, with men that are 22 years old or whatever. Like I know like who I jive with. And if you could say the same thing, then you should be able to match my performance using the same tactics. If you got the guts to get up and follow a plan. So I'd say the same unless your skill set's different.
Wow. On pace for $600,000 in commissions if you're just somewhere on the average. So if a loan officer, is watching this, a real estate professional is watching this, they're trying to build up their business. Okay. And they're seeing all these awesome results. They saw the show. They're seeing how you're doing it. What would you tell them if they're trying to build up their business right now? They're trying to get to the next level like you guys.
So a couple things. If you're a real estate agent, first of all, what I did in the Springs with getting real estate agents to refer me business is no different than what real estate agents should be doing with referral partners that can send them business every single month. People like real estate attorneys, financial planners, CPAs, people that help get other people into assisted living where they have to list their homes. Most real estate agents work almost like loan officers who do refis. They go for 1 unit of work to 1 unit of pay. And that is one of the reasons why real estate agents don't have the steady source of business that, decent loan officers have. So if you're a real estate agent that is looking to start getting repeat referral business that you can generate every single month, I can help you, or one of my loan officers can help you. So what I did is repeatable in both spaces. And we'd be happy to help you if that's something you're trying to develop. Secondly, what I did do is I had value to give real estate agents, which actually got them to send me business. And the things that I helped them with were things that helped them grow their business, like retargeting and ranking like #1 on Google, and just different things that actually helps the business that they currently have. So if those are things that we could help you with as far as doing classes, we have classes, both webinars online and in person, that either myself or Nick or one of our loan officers could help you and your team with marketing to make sure that you have some automation and things that keeps business, so you can do all the things all the time and not feel like you have to be the one doing it. So that's another way we can help you. If you're a loan officer, obviously you could come work with us, and we can actually hold your hand and make sure that this actually gets done. You saw the numbers that I did, and if I can do it and there's somebody on my team that's wanting to do it, you can bet that they're going to get first, they're going to get full attention to make sure that they hit those numbers. It benefits all of us. And if you're, if you're not on our team and you just want some help, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. You can go to reloloshow.com, and it has all of our contact information. And 9 times out of 10, I'd be happy to help you regardless. So just reach out to us and give us a shot to help you, and hopefully we can put you in a better spot.
If I was going to say any last thing to somebody, I would say take a day, 2 days, a week, whatever it takes you, and come up with a really, really, really strong avatar. If you can know exactly who you jive with, who you like to serve, and you can get into their brain and what are they thinking about? What's their pillow talk at night with their spouse? What are their vices? You can get really deep into who that person is and unique to that one person. I think that's what's going to help you go further faster than what we did, because it even took us a little bit to create. It wasn't really until like the 3rd month we started recognizing that, the opportunity that exists, knowing that exact perfect avatar. So if you're trying to take this plan and run with it, I would say if it's possible, before you launch into your 90 days, come up with your perfect avatar of who you like to work with as a referral partner and only speak to them. I don't mean like only trying to phone call people, but I mean like all your messaging, everything you're doing online, any videos, social media posts, everything is speaking to that exact avatar so that you're attracting that perfect person as well. And I think that's the one thing people don't put enough stock in up front, but is the biggest thing that can multiply your results and help you go further faster.
All right, guys, man, this was an awesome call, an awesome breakdown. Really appreciate you giving the entire audience a behind the scenes peek at how this all went through. Now, let's say they saw this, they love what you guys are doing, and they want some help. Okay, they want some one-on-one help. What can they do?
Yeah, so $3.5 million in 90 days is a big number. It's something that a lot of loan officers would be proud to do, especially going into a brand new market. If you need some help, we've got a couple of resources on RELOLoshow.com. You can grab an avatar workbook. It's actually a physical workbook we're going to mail you, and you can be able to have that, as a resource if you're trying to come up with your avatar. Casey made an awesome workbook that's going to has really great questions that you can ask. And even in some cases, go to realtors, go to somebody that matches your app, ask them some questions. Ask them, hey, would it be okay if we have a really deep personal conversation, just to help me with this? It's not necessarily about you. It's just about you in general, your type of person. So the workbook is going to be a huge benefit if you grab the workbook. I talk with Casey and I. There's also the ability to book a 30-minute phone call there. And we can jump on, we can make sure that you get a jump start. If anything, sometimes you just might want somebody to verify what you're doing and tell you that what your is going to work. And it's a good plan, or you might want a couple of ideas. And so we can jump on, share some stuff with you there. So RELOLoshow.com has some different resources for you. So check that out.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. If you want some one-on-one help, reach out to these fine gentlemen and they will help you be able to achieve the goals that you want. Casey, Nick, thank you so much for breaking this down for everybody. And we'll keep on cheating on.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, buddy. Bam.